The Friend of Stewart administration tells public servants it won't be meeting with them to discuss any salaries or wages increases during the remainder of its term in office. That's our top story in our Barbados Today morning news update for Thursday, March the 22nd. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Thanks for joining us. Public servants in Barbados will definitely not be getting any salary or wages increases under the current Friend of Stewart administration. That is the latest mandate given to the Ministry of the Civil Service by Stewart in his capacity as a minister responsible for the public service. In a memo dated March 20th, 2018 and addressed to the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, Tony Moore, Permanent Secretary Alison Fort informed Moore that the Ministry of Finance had advised that the prevailing economic conditions did not permit a general increase in emoluments for public servants, including any one-off payments. Now, Fort said he was further directed that negotiations with the unions should focus on non-salary items. The Permanent Secretary further informed the BWU that its request for a 15% hike across the board for the period April 2016 to March 2018 cannot be accommodated at this time. Fort warned the union that while he was willing to meet to follow on any non-salary items, he will not be meeting to discuss matters relating to increases at this time. It was slow going last night for the results in the Antigua and Barbados general election. While no definite winner had been declared up to late last night, the incumbent Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party of Prime Minister Gaston Brown was leading in the majority of boxes counted and seats unofficially called. Prime Minister Brown and his wife Maria were also victorious. But in Sister Island, Barbuda, the incumbent Arthur Nibbs was unseated by Trevor Walker of the Barbuda People's Movement. We will have more on the elections in our regional news. But back in Barbados, a date has been set for the Supreme Court to hear government's appeal against the recent ruling that paved the way for Commonwealth citizens to vote in the next general elections here. With the appeal scheduled to be heard next month, lawyers for the people who had sued the state over their rights to participate in the elections are hoping for a quick ruling. During a procedural exercise yesterday at which attorneys representing all sides appeared before Justice of Appeal Andrew Burgess, the court set April 9th, 2018 as the date for the hearing. In other news now, an international human rights organization is seeking to pressure Barbados into legalizing same-sex marriages and providing the sort of atmosphere in which the lesbian, bisexual, gay, and transgender community can live freely and without fear of persecution or victimization. The New York-based Human Rights Watch, in a report entitled, "I Have to Leave to Be Me, Discriminatory Laws Against LBGT People in the Eastern Caribbean," said Barbados must repeal Section 9, Chapter 154 of the Sexual Offences Act of 1992, which criminalizes consensual same-sex conduct. The LGBT cause was also promoted by the UN's top diplomat here, resident coordinator Stephen O'Malley.
The laws create an understanding that discrimination, whether institutionalized or individual, is permissible. It's not a surprise then that we see homophobia and transphobia manifesting in a range of ways in Latin America and the Caribbean. LGBTI people are too often excluded from legal protections, rejected by families and communities, and denied equal treatment in schools, workplaces, healthcare settings, and the streets. But this cost doesn't just occur at an individual level. When bright minds are denied a safe space to learn and grow, when capable individuals are denied employment, when workers, whether artists or teachers, doctors or lawyers, no longer feel safe, nations as a whole lose.
The local business sector is staying a long way away from the campaign of retired prostitute Natalie Hayward, who has appealed for assistance from the private sector to run her general election campaign for the city seat. However, spokesmen for the two key private sector organizations, that's the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Barbados Private Sector Association, said they were staying clear of politics altogether not just Hearer's campaign. In a post published yesterday on her campaign website, www.votenatalie.com, and headline, Natalie reaches out to businesses for sponsorship, the controversial candidate's campaign manager, Charlie Spice Lewis, listed a number of areas in which Harewood would need assistance. They include space in Bridgetown for her constituency office, a hired car for transportation, clothes, shoes, and other fashion accessories, beauty care items like hair and nails, advertising flyers, posters, banners, and T-shirts.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Thanks for staying with us for the regional news. Back to the Antigua elections. Scores of registered electors found themselves scrambling to get temporary identification cards yesterday before they could vote. Now, the offices of the Antigua and Barbados Electoral Commission were crowded with voters desperate to get the cards. Up to mid-afternoon, some 200 cards were distributed, and several more people were still running frantically to the offices as the clock ticked closer to the close of the poll. More in this ABS News report.
This was the scene at the Commission's headquarters on election day, only hours to go before the polls closed. And those are registered voters waiting to get their identification cards. On the lower floor, more people sit and wait on their names to be called. We understand it was a buzz of activity throughout the day at the facility.
Approximately 7:30, 8 o'clock, we were met with a crowd of persons who basically would have lost their cards, persons who can't find their cards. It is now after 4 o'clock and a number of persons are still in the office. We are currently making provisions for that temporary identification card, and of course, because of the influx of persons, that's basically why you're seeing so many persons still at the office.
And on the international scene, Facebook's chief executive, Mark Zuckerberg, said on Wednesday that his company made mistakes in mishandling data belonging to 50 million of its users and promised tougher steps to restrict developers' access to data. More in this Reuters report.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg broke his silence Wednesday, writing on the platform he founded, quote, "We have a responsibility to protect your data, and if we can't, then we don't deserve to serve you." The statement coming after days of uproar over reports 50 million Facebook users' data was improperly used by a political consulting firm. The news sent the stock price plummeting and led lawmakers demanding answers from the social network's executive. Zuckerberg tried to explain how exactly a political firm called Cambridge Analytica was able to gain access to so much user data and use it to help Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Reuters correspondent David Ingram.
This news broke on Friday. Zuckerberg waited till Wednesday to speak, and the demands had been incessant for him to come out and say something, either to explain what happened, to say what he was going to do to fix it, or to just reaffirm Facebook's commitment to user privacy. And for almost 5 days, users heard nothing from Mark Zuckerberg. And when Zuckerberg finally spoke, there was not anything like an apology or an "I'm sorry." This was, here's what our policies were back then, we wouldn't allow this kind of thing today, and we're going to make a couple of changes to restrict developers' access to data.
While Zuckerberg didn't say he was sorry, his number two, Sheryl Sandberg, in a post said, quote, "I deeply regret that we didn't do enough to deal with it." Facebook will also be investigating all apps that had access to large amounts of information before the company tightened data access in 2014. And it will let users who were impacted by any data misuse know as well.
And that's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper email updates or like us on Facebook. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals as well as Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic day.